Welcome back guys. So this is going to be the unboxing and review of Asus ROG Phone 3. This is the retail unit of ROG Phone 3. I purchased it from Flipkart India. Snapdragon 865 plus processor, 8GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. Now I have been using the phone for about 2 weeks. I have already done the unboxing. This is just for the video purpose. Yeah, so inside this plastic casing we have these manuals, warranty card, quick start guide. These stickers are also present. This is the SIM card ejector tool. Then we have the phone itself. My phone is already switched on. And let's check out the rest of the contents. So we have this Type-C to 3.5mm cable. ROG Phone 3 does not come with a 3.5mm port. And then we have this Type-C to Type-C USB cable. Cable seems to be of very good quality. And lastly we have this 30 watt charger. You can see the readings here, 30 watt max charge. Good thing this hypercharger is provided in the box. ROG Phone 2 that was sold in India, Asus provided the 18 watt charger in the box. Now the variant sold in India is not the 10 cent edition. In India, Asus is not bundling the AeroActive cooler with the phone. So you can see at the back, Republic of Gamers is mentioned instead of 10 cent edition. Before mentioning the specs, just wanted to show you the SAR values for the Indian variant. You can see here, for the head part it is 0.736 watt per kg and for the body part it is 1.497 watt per kg. Now first I'll be mentioning its specs. This phone comes with a 6.59 inch AMOLED panel and supports a resolution of 1080 by 2340 pixels, resulting in an aspect ratio of 19.5:9. The display supports HDR10+. It also supports 144Hz refresh rate. Now there is a hidden option that enables 160Hz refresh rate. There's really not a very big difference between 144Hz and 160Hz. 144Hz should be smooth enough for most of the users. Higher refresh rate will consume more battery as well. The phone has a touch sampling rate of 270Hz. It is probably one of the highest touch sampling rate on Android phones as of now. Not only that, the display is TUV Rhineland certified. It's basically a certification of low blue light emission. The blue light emitting from the panel affects our sleeping pattern and it also causes eye fatigue. But the good thing about ROG's panel is that it emits low blue light. So viewing the display is very pleasing on the eyes. Now this is a very big phone guys, I have to say. 171mm tall, 78mm wide and 9.85mm thick. Even with this thickness, the camera modules are protruding. So the phone will be a bit wobbly when you put it on a flat surface. Now the phone feels very solid in the hand, I have to say. Its weight is around 240 grams, but Asus has done a very good job of distributing the weight evenly. On the front we have Gorilla Glass 6 protection. On the back side we have Gorilla Glass 3 protection. And this is the Asus logo equipped with RGB lighting. We can customize this lighting. For example, we can use it for notification or even sync it with our apps. The phone also has an RGB LED indicator here. That's really good to see. The LED indicator is missing from a lot of premium devices nowadays. Phone has a metallic frame and it's a glass sandwich design. You can see it catches smudges very easily. It's a common thing for devices that comes with this glass on the back side. Comes with Snapdragon 865 plus processor. It's an octa-core processor. It has a prime core that can be clocked up to 3.09 GHz. But the thing is guys, to run the processor at its max potential on ROG Phone 3, we need to use the AeroActive cooler. We need to enable the X mode and then set it to level 3. Without the AeroActive cooler, we can only set the X mode to level 2. At level 2, the clock speed is around 2.07 GHz. On the GPU side, it comes with Adreno 650. Both the CPU and GPU received a slight overclock as compared to the vanilla Snapdragon 865 processor. Now I have the 128GB ROM variant. Out of the box we get 102GB of free space. Phone comes with 8GB of LPDDR5 RAM and for the storage part it is using UFS 3.1. Coming on to the cameras, the main sensor is Sony IMX686. It's a 64 megapixel snapper with an aperture size of f1.8. It does not support laser autofocus, it supports face detection autofocus. Then we have the ultra wide angle lens. It's a 13 megapixel snapper with a disappointing aperture size of f2.4. Lower the aperture size, more light the camera sensor picks up, and in the end we have a 5 megapixel macro snapper with an aperture size of f2.0. On the front side we have a 24 megapixel camera with an aperture size of f2.0. Now all of the camera sensors except for the 64 megapixel sensor are from OmniVision. The phone can record up to 8K resolution 30 fps, 4K resolution at 30, 60 and 120 fps, Full HD resolution at 30, 60, 240 fps, and lastly HD resolution at 480 fps. It's the slow motion mode. It uses a 3-axis EIS for stabilization. Camera sensor does not have OIS. Now the EIS works very nicely, I have to say. It even works at 8K recording, but you will find the best results at Full HD recording. I was also able to record Full HD 60 fps video using the front camera. The phone comes with a very big battery, 6000 mAh. It supports fast charging. 30-watt charger is provided in the box. Asus calls it Hypercharge, and I have to say guys, it really charges the device quickly. I was able to charge my phone from 20% to 90% in only 55 minutes. Now guys, this is a strict policy that I follow for all of my devices. I don't let my device's battery go below 20%, and I don't charge the battery more than 90%. This is generally the best practice for the longevity of the lithium ion batteries in modern phones. Now the phone supports Power Delivery 3.0 and also Quick Charge 4. Quick Charge 4 is supported by the secondary Type-C port that is provided on this side. The bottom Type-C port supports only Quick Charge 3, but the 30-watt charger works with both of these Type-C ports. Behind this side Type-C port, there is a USB 3.1 Generation 2 controller. It also supports DisplayPort version 1.4. It can output 4K resolution 60 fps videos. The bottom Type-C port only has USB 2 interface. You can see this is the LED notification. It has different colors like green and red. Now I did not have any problem with the signal reception, both of my Wi-Fi and 4G SIM. I observed that ROG Phone 3 was able to catch the Wi-Fi signal even from longer distances as compared to my other phones. The phone supports dual SIM. It's a 5G enabled phone, but we can only use 5G plus 4G or 4G plus 4G. Two 5G SIMs won't work simultaneously. Let me just show you the SIM card tray. I'll use the SIM card ejector. Yeah, so you can see I'm just using a single SIM. It's a 4G SIM card, and here it's mentioned good luck and have fun, GLHF. A nice touch by Asus. Regarding the call quality guys, it was very clear on both caller and receiver's end. You can see the large speaker grill on top and the bottom. Stereo setup, 7 magnet front facing speakers. Each of the speakers have their own amplifiers. The phone also supports high resolution audio output, granted that you use with an audio equipment that is HRA certified. It also has support for dual band Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.1, GPS such as GNSS, GLONASS, Galileo, Baidu and even Navic. NFC is also present, and let me just show you the side Type-C port. We need to remove this rubber covering. You can see. So actually there are two ports here guys. You need to use the upper Type-C port for charging the device. The bottom Type-C port is for the proprietary accessory that's available for ROG Phone 3. Don't use the bottom Type-C port for charging the device. For security purpose, we have the optical under display fingerprint sensor. Let me just show you its performance. It's okay, not the fastest fingerprint sensor, but it works. The phone also comes with quad mics. It has a feature where we can use one of the 4 mics to suppress the wind noise. It has this feature where we can use one of the mics to suppress the wind noise. You can see one of the mic is here. Another one is right here at the bottom. Third one is present at the top. And fourth one is present at the back. It only comes with a single LED flash. One thing to notice here is that they have placed the Type-C port slightly on the left side instead of the middle portion. This has been done so that you can use the phone even while charging. The cable should not be interfering with your grip. We have the volume buttons here, and this is the power button. It comes with a red accent. Lastly, we have these air triggers present on the left and the right edge. These air triggers are not physical buttons, they are ultrasonic sensors. They are placed just like the shoulder buttons of a gamepad. We can assign any of the virtual buttons to these air triggers and they work just like gamepad's shoulder buttons. The air triggers support dual partition mode. Basically, we can split one air trigger into two ultrasonic buttons, in total having 4 ultrasonic buttons. Now I have already shown these air triggers in action in my other gameplay videos. The air triggers work very nicely with Play Store games as well as emulators like Dolphin and Day1 PS2 emulator. I'll drop the links in the video so you can check out those videos. Moving on to the display part, these are my display settings. You can see here we can change the refresh rate. I have set it to auto. It automatically adjusts the refresh rate. I have been using this setting for about 2 weeks and it works very nicely, I have to say. It's up to you. You can fix the refresh rate to 144 Hz, 120 Hz, 90 Hz or 60 Hz. Phone's battery life is really very good and on light usage, even with 144 Hz refresh rate, the device should be able to last for about a day easily. Now when I started using the phone 2 weeks ago, there was a bug where the refresh rate used to get locked at 120 Hz. When we tried to change it to auto or any other refresh rate, a message was shown that the refresh rate was locked by a certain app. But now the phone has received 2 OTA updates and that bug is completely gone. So if you are facing that bug, try updating your phone. Best part is that the refresh rate can be adjusted on the fly when you are gaming. Just need to open the Game Genie interface and change the refresh rate from there. I'll be showing you that in the later part of the video. Now my phone does not have any green tint issue. It also does not have any burn-in issue that is present on some AMOLED panels, but it does have the black crush issue. I have already created a separate video addressing this issue and it has a temporary fix. You can use a third-party app called Screen Balance and with some tweaking that black crush issue can be minimized. Asus has acknowledged it and they are working on an update. It should be fixed with their update in the future. Regarding the black crush issue, when you are watching a video at low brightness in a dark room, the black areas in the video appear to be fuzzy as if the video is of very low quality. A lot of noise is visible. Moving on to the color profiles, you just need to tap on Splendid here. You can see different color profiles have been provided. Default setting, natural, cinematic, standard. You can also change the color temperatures, either warm, cool or balanced. It's entirely up to you. By default the colors look soft. It's highly on the color accurate side instead of oversaturated colors. But if you want to increase the color saturation, just select the customize option and use this slider to increase the saturation levels. Just observe the saturation increasing. You can see how saturated the colors are looking. Now I have OnePlus 7. It has an AMOLED panel that is HDR10 certified. And by increasing the color saturation, now it should match the color profile of devices like OnePlus 7 and K20 Pro. Colors on these devices absolutely pop, but I'll just stick with the cinematic profile. Asus really pushed the envelope with this display panel. 270Hz touch sampling rate and it also boasts a 25 millisecond touch latency rate. The swipe latency is only 18 milliseconds. All of this translates into a blazing fast display that is very responsive. Coming back to our display section, we can change the theme, a light one and a dark one. I am using the dark theme for AMOLED panels. This dark theme works very nicely. The dark colors look very deep, I have to say. It's not easy to see the bezels using the dark theme. Let me just switch to the light theme. Now you can see the bezels. These bezels incorporate the large speakers. I'll just switch back to dark theme. Now I'm using the gestures to navigate through the phone instead of the navigation bar. We can change it from here. These settings are provided under the display section, system navigation. You can see I'm using the gestures. Swipe from right or left edge in order to go back. To open the task manager, just swipe from bottom and hold. You can see. And to quickly go to the home screen, just need to swipe from the bottom like this. You can switch to the classical navigation bar if you want. These are the navigation buttons. I'll just stick with gesture navigation. Works very nicely with the device. We can also enable the always on panel if we want. I have disabled it. It's entirely up to you. It will consume some battery. LED indicator can be enabled or disabled from here. This is the DRM info for ROG Phone 3. Here you can see it is Widevine L1 certified. So you can stream Amazon Prime and Netflix video in HD mode. This phone has a true 10-bit panel. It can output 1.07 billion colors. So guys, now I'll be directly comparing its display and speakers with OnePlus 7. OnePlus 7 has a 6.1 inch AMOLED panel. You can see the size difference. I hope this gives you an idea how huge ROG Phone 3 is. So now I'm going to measure the maximum and the minimum brightness of Asus ROG Phone 3 and we'll be comparing it with OnePlus 7. You can see here both of these panels are HDR certified panels. I'll be measuring the brightness on a completely white background. I'll just increase the brightness to 100% on both of these devices. Yeah, this is a white background. First I'll measure it on OnePlus 7. This is the lux meter. And let's check out the reading. So on OnePlus 7 the reading is coming out to be around 536 lux, roughly 537. Now I'll measure it on ROG Phone 3, 100% brightness. So you can see on ROG Phone 3 brightness level is around 510 lux. It's lower than OnePlus 7 but still it's bright enough. Text is legible even under direct sunlight. Now I'll measure the minimum brightness level. You can see set to 1%. On OnePlus 7 the reading is coming out to be 5 lux. Let's perform the same test on ROG Phone 3. 1% brightness. The reading is coming out to be 7 lux. My OnePlus 7 has 60Hz display and I have set the display to auto on ROG Phone 3. Let me just manually set the display to 144Hz. This is 100% brightness. So you can see at 144Hz the reading is around 500 lux, almost the same, and at 1% brightness the reading is around 8 lux. Okay, so now we are going to measure the audio output of the stereo speakers of ROG Phone 3. Each speaker has its own amplifier. You can see the long grill at the top and at the bottom. So let me just play this song. I'll increase the volume to 100%. I'll be measuring the output using the sound level meter. So let's just play it.
The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways. And on we'll go.
Alright guys, so audio is definitely on the higher side and it is very clear, I have to say. Now one thing that I have noticed and I suspected this, the bottom speaker is louder than the top speaker but not by that much, and this is the first time I am seeing the speaker of a mobile device crossing the 100 dB reading. The audio tuning for these speakers have been done by Dirac. So you can see guys, this is the audio wizard and from here we can customize the audio. There's Dirac mentioned and I have selected pop as the preset. You can select from any of these presets. Jazz. You can also create your own profiles, custom profile. So there's a lot of customization when it comes to audio. Just to give you an idea about the speaker performance, I'll be running the same song on OnePlus 7. My OnePlus 7 has stereo speakers as well. Let's just play the song. Volume has been set to 100%.
We'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow to the sun rays, and on we'll go through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Trust me guys, OnePlus 7 has very loud speakers, and you can see the reading was around 95 dBA, but ROG phone managed to cross 100 dBA. Coming on to the battery section guys, the 6000 mAh battery works very nicely with the phone even when the display rate is set at 144 Hz. Now I have already created dedicated gaming videos. In one video I played 4 battle royale games, COD Mobile, PUBG Mobile, Free Fire and Fortnite for about 1 hour. The battery percentage dropped from 70% to around 55%. I had maxed out the graphics settings in all of these games. In another video, I played Damon PS2 Pro Emulator games for around 50 to 55 minutes. The battery percentage dropped from 70% to 54%. All of the games were running at very high resolution. Based on my testing, the battery backup was really good. On top of that, there are a lot of extra battery saving features that are provided by ASUS. For example, this phone supports pass-through mode. So when your phone is fully charged and you are still gaming, the battery won't charge and it will use the outlet current to power the internals of the device. Here you can also see the apps that are excessively draining your battery, limiting their usage. Let me show you this Power Master section. Here you can tap on battery saving options. Here we can select from different battery modes, battery saving options, battery care. And you can see here I have limited the charging limit. We can limit it to 100%, 90%, 80%. After reaching these limits, the battery will stop charging. This is a very good feature and I hope it's present on other phones in the future as well. So basically if you forget to unplug your phone even when the battery is 100%, it won't overcharge your battery. Overcharging your battery can reduce its life. We also have the option of schedule charging and slow charging as well. By enabling the slow charging option, maximum charging rate will be limited to 10 watts only. So it's really good to see that these extra features have been incorporated in ROG Phone 3. And these are my charging cycles guys. You can see all of them have been rated good. Regarding the charging speed, I was able to charge my phone from 20% to 90% in about 55 minutes only. So moving on to the synthetic benchmark scores, I will be comparing ROG Phone 3 with OnePlus 7. My OnePlus 7 has Snapdragon 855 processor and 6GB of RAM. Just to give you an idea about the increase in performance as compared to the previous generation. Overall score on ROG 3 was around 615,000 and on OnePlus 7 it was around 446,000. You can see the difference in CPU score, roughly 182,000 on ROG 3 and 139,000 on OnePlus 7. GPU score on ROG 3 was around 235,000, on OnePlus 7 it was around 167,000. Memory score on ROG 3 was around 94,000, on OnePlus 7 it was around 73,000. And the UX score on ROG 3 was around 102,000, on OnePlus 7 it was around 65,000. Moving on to the Geekbench scores, on ROG 3 the single core score was around 978, on OnePlus 7 the single core score was around 725. On ROG 3 multi-core score was around 3285 and on OnePlus 7 it was around 2703. Then I have the Slingshot Extreme scores for OpenGL. On ROG 3 score was around 7778. On OnePlus 7 it was around 5682. The Vulkan score on ROG 3 was around 7155 and on OnePlus 7 it was around 4960. And these are the scores for Android storage benchmark. On right side I have ROG Phone 3 and on left side I have OnePlus 7. Sequential read speed on ROG 3 was around 1635 Mbps. You can see on OnePlus 7 it was around 1407. OnePlus 7 has UFS 3 storage, ROG Phone 3 has UFS 3.1 storage. The sequential write speed on ROG 3 was around 713 Mbps and sequential write speed on OnePlus was around 204 Mbps. You can see a difference here. You can see the other values yourself. Lastly, we have the CPU throttling test. I ran the test for about 5 minutes and you can see the results here. No CPU thermal throttling detected. Average performance was around 231,000 GIPS. Minimum performance was around 215,000 GIPS and maximum performance was around 238,000 GIPS. I ran the test again and there was some slight thermal throttling, but average performance was still on the higher side, 215,000 GIPS. CPU throttled to around 93% of its max performance. These are just synthetic benchmark scores, but I have extensively tested a lot of games and trust me guys, the phone does not throttle easily. It is able to sustain high performance for longer periods of time. For hours of gaming, you can definitely use this device. Another thing to mention here is that if you max out the processor guys, the phone will heat up. It's a normal process for a device to heat up while you are gaming, especially when you are running the game at high FPS and high settings. In my testing, when I was able to max out the GPU around 90 to 100% utilization, the temperature went up to 46 degrees Celsius and it was definitely hot on this side, but nothing major. It can be easily held in your palm. Most of the Play Store games won't be able to max out Snapdragon 865 Plus processor, but if you are running games at a very high FPS like 144 FPS and maxing out all of the details, then it will easily max out its processor, and yes, it will heat up a lot. It is highly advised you use Aeroactive cooler in order to sustain performance, but its thermal performance is considerably better than my previous high performance devices like OnePlus 7 and Redmi K20 Pro. I remember OnePlus 7 heating up so much that I was not even able to hold the phone along its edges. OnePlus 7 does a very good job of sustaining high performance. My Redmi K20 Pro just throttles when the processor is stressed out. It doesn't let the phone to sustain high performance. It focuses on reducing the temperatures. Running most of the Play Store games at 60 FPS is not a big challenge. Phone won't be heating up a lot. I have already tried out PUBG, Call of Duty, Free Fire and Fortnite. Moving on to the camera department, this is the interface. We can quickly switch between the wide lens and the ultra wide lens from here. This is ultra wide lens. In the photo mode, we have a simple beauty slider here. You can see. If you want more options, you need to switch to the portrait mode. Now let me just show you the beauty slider. So many options have been added like change skin tone, soften skin, brighten skin, enhance eyes, thin cheeks. This is the panorama mode. This mode is used when we need to capture a wider field of view. Different photos are stitched together. Then we have the night mode. In this phone, we have the option to automatically enable it. Then we have the Pro mode. With Pro mode, a lot of parameters can be tweaked manually like white balance, ISO, shutter speed. We can switch between the wide lens and the ultra wide lens. Then we can switch to the macro sensor. Phone has a 5 megapixel macro snapper. It does not have any autofocus. Its aperture size is f2.0. So for close-up snaps, where the subject is at a distance of about 5 cm from the camera sensor, you can use the macro sensor to capture the image. Phone will show you a message that the subject is very close to the main sensor. You should switch to the macro sensor. Let me go back to the photo mode and show you the settings. From camera resolution setting, we can switch to the full 64 megapixel sensor. But I checked some images. I did not find any big use of full 64 megapixel pics. They were actually more noisy than the standard 16 megapixel pics. So it's better you stick with the standard 4:3 mode, which uses pixel binning. I'll be showing you samples in the later part of the video. We can enable or disable the watermark from here. You can see the other options. Tracking autofocus focuses on the subject and tracks it if it moves. HDR has been set to auto and it works very nicely. You can disable it if you want. It's entirely up to you. Aspect ratio can be changed from here as well. And this is the flash. And this is the option for Google Lens. You can see. Moving on to the video section. Phone can record videos up to 8K resolution, and from here we can switch the resolutions. You can see 4K 60 fps, 4K 30 fps, Full HD 60 fps, Full HD 30 fps and the standard HD mode. I was very impressed by the videos taken from ROG Phone 3. The EIS works even at 8K resolution, but it wasn't as smooth as videos taken in Full HD 60fps mode. But for still videography, this phone is amazing. Now guys, we can use one of the mics to suppress the wind noise as well. Just need to tap on this mic icon here. You can see wind noise reduction. I'll just tap on it and now it has been enabled. It works very nicely guys. I tested it. Just as I told you earlier, ROG Phone 3 has 4 mics and one of the mics can be used for this purpose. ROG Phone 3 also has a hyper steady mode for stabilization, and to enable this hyper steady mode we need to tap on this hand icon here. So you can see hyper steady is on, but it is limited to only Full HD resolution. We can use hyper steady with both the wide lens and the ultra wide lens, but bear in mind guys, using this technique a big part of the video will be cropped, but the end result will be a very stable video. Now there is another quad bear sensor on ROG Phone 3. It's the front camera, 24 megapixel OmniVision sensor. This camera is also decent, but it was struggling to capture my face properly under variable lighting conditions. But when the lighting conditions are okay, decent pics are shot. Portrait mode is also available for the front camera. You can see it's slightly struggling to capture the subject and blurring the background. I'll be showing you some samples in the later part of the video. And just like all of the phones out there, under artificial lighting, noise is introduced. Even for the front camera, a beauty slider has been provided. This phone also supports 4K HDR recording, but guys, I was not able to find this option. Let me just show you the video settings. You can see we can switch from H.264 and H.265 video format. H.265 will consume less data. Video quality can be switched from here. Audio effects option can be enabled from here as well. It's that wind noise reduction thing. I'll just scroll down. You can see the other settings here yourself. I'll just disable the hyper steady mode. So we can record videos using the ultra wide lens as well. Let me just show you that. Yeah, but the thing is guys, it is limited to 4K 30 fps only. You can see here. Then we have the motion tracking feature. Just tap the subject to start the motion tracking. This goes up to 4K 60 fps. Then we have the slow-mo feature. These are the options available. 4K resolution 120 fps, Full HD resolution 240 fps, Full HD resolution 120 fps and HD resolution 480 fps. Then this is the time-lapse feature. Recommended to use the tripod. We also have a dedicated pro video mode. That's really good to see. You can change so many of these parameters. Now let me just tell you some details about the videos taken from the snappers. Now let me just tell you about the details of the videos taken using the main sensor of ROG Phone 3. For 4K 60 fps video, the data bitrate was around 75 Mbps. For Full HD resolution videos, the bitrate was around 30 Mbps. For the 8K 30 fps video, the bitrate was around 106 Mbps. Yes, you heard it right. In all of these videos, the audio was recorded in stereo mode. Its audio bitrate was around 290 kbps. For the front camera, I recorded a video in Full HD 60 fps mode and its bitrate was 30 Mbps. And for a single pic taken using the full 64 megapixel camera, its size was around 21.8 Mbps. So now I'm going to show you some photo and video samples. This is a pic taken using the rear camera of ROG Phone 3, standard 16 megapixel mode. Under normal lighting condition, the phone has no problems in taking still photography. Okay, details popped up by mistake. You can see file size is around 6.77 MB. The sky was not overexposed. The captured colors were on the natural side. Upon zooming in, details are not lost easily, but if you zoom in a lot, we start to lose some details. It is expected, but color production was very good, I have to say. You can see the different colors of leaves. They were captured very nicely. Slightly dark green hair, slightly yellowish hair. According to ASUS, 2x zoom is lossless, but I am not sure how to do this 2x zoom, because I just zoom in like this and there is no indicator how much I have zoomed in. Dynamic range was decent, not the best. You can see some details were lost there. Not all of the parts of the leaves were captured properly. This is a picture taken using the ultra wide lens of ROG Phone 3. It has a field of view of 125 degrees and I was impressed by its quality as well. Generally the ultra wide lens takes low quality pictures, but that's not the case with ROG Phone 3. Again, the sky was not overexposed. The colors look very nice, I have to say, but the colors did not look as distinct as they were looking with the main sensor. Still, the image came out to be bright enough considering how high the aperture size of the ultra wide lens is, f2.4. However, the dynamic range was not that good. You can see a lot of black spots are here in the shadowy areas and details were lost. Let me show you the details for the pic. You can see file size 6.09 MB and this is the resolution. Again, the colors look true to life. I tried taking selfie under the variable lighting condition and you can see the front camera struggled to focus on my face properly. There was a lot of noise as well. Finally, I was able to take a picture, but still there was some slight noise. The front camera struggles a lot under the variable lighting conditions. This is a portrait shot taken using the selfie camera. I am standing outside. The blurring algorithm struggled a bit here. The bird was not able to be blurred properly. You can see here. So very average result. Here the lighting condition was normal. Even in this case, the blurring algorithm struggled to blur the beard properly. This is a picture taken using the rear camera of ROG Phone 3 under artificial lighting. The colors look decent, but upon zooming in, you can clearly see the noise. It's expected, happens with almost every mobile phone that uses a 64 megapixel quad bare lens. And rear camera did a better job than the front camera. It was able to blur the area around the beard properly. You can see the background was blurred properly. Upon zooming in, you can clearly see the noise level. Now this is the night shot taken using ROG Phone 3. Nothing special here, but it gets the job done considering there was no light at all. This is a picture taken using the front camera under artificial lighting conditions and it came out to be decent. Skin tones look natural. I did not use any beauty filter to smoothen the skin or whiten it. The noise was kept to an acceptable level. And then we have the portrait shot taken under artificial lighting condition. It did a decent job but struggled to blur the ear properly here. Lastly, we have the macro snapper. I was able to take a really close-up shot of my Xbox One gamepad. Subject was as close as 5 cm from the lens and this is the pic taken using the primary lens. You can see it was completely blurred. The 5 megapixel macro snapper does not have autofocus and these are the details. You can see file size is only 891 KB. Now I'll be showing you some video samples. So guys, I'm recording this video using the rear camera of ROG Phone 3. I'm just walking around my house. I'm recording the video in full HD 60 FPS. I'm shaking the mobile as well. Audio is being recorded using the internal mic of ROG Phone 3. ROG Phone 3 has 4 mics. So I'll be shaking the mobile now to check out the stability. I have to say guys, it's very stable. ROG Phone 3 does not have OIS. This has to be the EIS. So guys, now I am recording this video in 4K 60 FPS mode. Walking around the house, checking out the stability. Let's check out the colors. Colors come out to be quite decent, I have to say. Stability is definitely working even at 4K 60 FPS. Now I'm holding the phone still. So guys, I'm recording this video using the front camera of ROG Phone 3. I'm recording the video in full HD 60 FPS mode. Audio is being recorded using the mic of ROG Phone 3. So now I have stepped outside of my house. You can see colors have changed. so it's struggling to capture my face when there is a bright background. So guys, now I am recording the video in 8K resolution 30 fps mode. Yes, ROG Phone 3 supports 8K video recording as well. I'll be just going outside of my home and let's see how's the colors here. Looks pretty nice. So I'll be shaking the phone now. And now I'll be holding it still. I have to say the quad mics work very nicely. Sound was definitely clear and it was also on the louder side as compared to other phones. All in all, I was impressed by the camera department of ROG Phone 3. So guys, now moving on to the software section. ROG Phone 3 comes with Android 10 based ROG UI and you can see these are the quick toggles. X mode can be enabled or disabled from here. After enabling the X mode, we have the option to choose from level 1, 2 or 3. Level 3 is maxed out performance. The phone will heat up a lot. To activate level 3, you need to use the Aeroactive cooler. Let me just show you that. Here you can see the system temperature, CPU temperature, GPU temperatures. Their clock speed are also shown. I'll enable the export now. You can see the CPU clock speed went up to 2.07 GHz. Along with that, its temperature also increased. Let me just show you the different levels of X mode. It has been set to level 2. This is level 1, power consumption is reduced. With level 2, power consumption increased. And with level 3, it will be maxed out, but you can see phone is telling us to use the phone's Aeroactive cooler to enable this mode. All of the gameplays that I have shown till now has been done using X mode enabled and set to level 2. Coming back to the quick toggles, you can see the other options here. Screen recorder is also present. These are its settings. Resolution can be changed from Full HD, HD, 480p. Quality can be changed from low, medium, high. This is the record audio option. We can use microphone or internal audio. Only the game's audio will be captured using the internal audio mode. And these are the other settings. These are the other quick toggles. You can see we can enable or disable the air triggers from here as well. System lighting option is also available here. Battery modes can be selected from here as well. Night light, multi-window and NFC feature is also available here. Let me just show you the system lighting feature. Light can be synced with the phone. We can enable or disable lighting with these modes. For example, even when the screen is off, the lighting can work. All you need to do is enable this option, screen off option. I'll just lock the screen now. And you can see our lighting is still working. This is the breathing effect. Let me just scroll down. These are the other modes where lighting can be enabled or disabled. Incoming call. During call, we can set it to static. Let me just show you the edit lighting feature. From here we can edit the mode and the color of lighting. I have selected color cycle, so different colors are being displayed. I'll select static and now I can adjust the color. So that's really good to see. Pink color, static mode. So now we are seeing a static pink color. We can choose from breathing. I'll select a different color now. This is the breathing effect. Then we have the strobing effect. We can also change its rate. I forgot to mention about it. Slow, medium, high. They are self-explanatory. This is the strobing effect. And lastly, we have the color cycle. Different colors will be displayed. We can change their speed. I'll set it to medium. Faster color switching now. So these were the lighting effects for the back logo. Coming on to the theme of the phone. I am using the ROG theme, but we can switch to a very simple Zen UI theme. A lot of features of ROG phone will be disabled, but it will give you a clean look, a non-gamer look. This wallpaper has an animation when I enable or disable the X mode. You can see it's all red because X mode has been enabled. To enable or disable X mode, I can use the air trigger by squeezing the phone. You can see X mode has been disabled. To enable it, I can do the same thing again. You can see now it has been enabled. I really love this theme, but if you want to change it to Zen UI theme, just go to settings. Here go to themes and wallpapers, my themes, and you can see this is the classic theme. I am using this one, Apex Galactic Armor default theme. You can see Zen UI theme looks very clean, close to stock Android. And guys, just as I told you earlier, this is the non-Tencent edition version of ROG Phone 3. In this phone there was no Chinese bloatware. ROG UI or Zen UI in this phone is close to stock Android. I'll just switch back to the gamer theme. Moving on to other settings, the haptic feedback in this phone is very good, I have to say. You can tweak it under sound and vibration setting. You can see vibration intensity can be tweaked from here. The haptic feedback is present even for the air triggers, but as far as I know, there's only a single motor triggering the haptic feedback. Still, I was not disappointed by its functioning. Now there is one setting that enables the phone speaker to go even louder. It's this outdoor mode. When you will enable it, there's a certain yellow area that will be shown in the volume slider. Once you go in this area, the sound output will be greatly enhanced. Audio wizard can be accessed from here. I already showed you that. So now I'll be showing you how to use the air triggers. For that we will be using the Game Genie interface. We can pop up the interface from any game. Let me just show you an example. Here I am running God of War 2 on Damon PS2 emulator. Now I'll be partitioning my air triggers into 4 ultrasonic buttons, and I'll be mapping them to the shoulder buttons and the trigger buttons of Damon PS2 Pro emulator's controller, just like the original PS2 controller. You can see L1 R1, L2 R2. So all I need to do is swipe here from the left edge. You can see Game Genie interface has popped up. You can see the different options here. Refresh rate can be changed on the fly. You can see I'll select it to 60 Hz because this emulator is limited to 60 Hz. From here we can see X mode is enabled. Clock speed is also shown here, 2.07 GHz. Internal temperature is also shown. Just make sure you check this option, real time info. This will show you all of the stats here: CPU, GPU resource utilization, battery percentage, internal temperature, FPS, and this shows how much time is remaining until the battery completely drains out. This feature is in beta stage and it's not very accurate. The stats shown there can be changed from here. Just tap on real time info management. From here you can check or uncheck the stats that you want or don't want. Yeah, coming back to the Game Genie interface. Calls and alerts can be blocked from here as well. Brightness can be locked. Now I'll set up the air triggers. Tap on air triggers option here. Ultrasonic buttons and motion control feature can be set from here. All we need to do is shake the phone and a key input will be registered. But first let me just show you how to set up the air triggers. The left air trigger is marked by blue color and the right air trigger is marked by red color. By default they will be set to tap. So you can see now we only have 2 air triggers. We can very easily move them wherever we want, and we just need to place them over the virtual control of the game or any application. But for this emulator I need 4 air triggers. So instead of tap, I'll select dual partition buttons for both of the air triggers. And you can see I have placed them directly over the shoulder and the trigger buttons of Damon PS2 Pro emulator's controller. Another good thing here is that we can save different profiles. You can see I have saved this profile and I have another profile. In the second profile I am not using the dual partition mode. In this profile I am using the dual partition mode. Make sure it has been enabled from here, and you can see our triggers are working very nicely. For my left air trigger, the left side has been assigned to L1 key, the right side has been assigned to R1 key, and for my right air trigger, the left side has been assigned to R2 key and the right side has been assigned to L2 key. It works very nicely. More settings to tweak with. Coming on to the motion control feature, just tap on the settings cog here and you can see Visual feedback can be enabled or disabled. It's that color that was showing when I was pressing the air trigger. Vibration can be enabled or disabled as well. It's self-explanatory. Just as I told you earlier, the air triggers have haptic feedback. Finger resting feature, yeah, this is a feature that I want to explain. I have enabled it so I can rest my fingers on the air triggers. Slightly touching the air trigger won't register any input. You need to press it just like a real button. It's entirely up to you. You can disable this feature as well. Now it will become more sensitive. From here we can change the tap, dual partition, swipe and slide setting. I'll be showing you this swipe setting in another game. You really don't need to use all of these settings in one game. You can test the finger strength from here. I'll press it hard and you can see it went to this level. I'll press it slightly and you can see it went to this level. Our input will be registered when it is at level 4. So here you can get an idea how intensely you need to push on this air trigger in order to register any input. Sensitivity booster is also there. It will make them highly sensitive. So these air triggers work very nicely, guys. I have already uploaded a lot of gameplays using these air triggers. You can check them out. It works with Play Store games as well as any emulator like Daemon PS2 and Dolphin emulator. These are the swipe settings. Basically on any air trigger we can swipe right or left and it will be registered as an input. Again we can change the sensitivity, trigger speed, and now this is working as a slide setting. So this is just amazing, available for both of the air triggers. I had no use for them in this emulator. Let me just show you a quick gameplay. So you can see I am using the air trigger. Visual feedback was enabled so that you can get to know about the air trigger working. I'll press the right side of the right air trigger to activate my God power. This is the L2 button in reality. So this is just amazing. Now I'm running Critical Ops. I'll open the Game Genie interface. I'll set the refresh rate to 144 Hz. Let me start the game. Resource monitor is enabled and you can see we are getting 144 Hz. This is with X mode enabled and set to level 2. And let me just show you my air trigger setup for this game. So you can see, guys, I am using the swipe feature. Just need to swipe the left air trigger in the left direction in order to toggle the reload feature. And to change my weapon, I need to swipe the left air trigger in the right direction. This arrow indicates the direction in which we need to swipe. For my right air trigger, I am using the tap setting. Just need to tap the right air trigger in order to shoot. It's just that easy. The profile has been saved. Now let me just show you this in action. So to shoot, I'll just press the right air trigger just like that. Empty your magazine. All right. Yeah, so now we need to reload. So I'll swipe the left air trigger in the left side. That worked. Now need to shoot all of the targets. So we need to switch our weapon. I'll swipe the left air trigger in the right side. That worked. So this was just an example how we can use the air triggers. And this is just amazing. Game is running at 144 FPS. Okay, the match has started. Let's see how's the performance here. Getting 144 FPS. solid performance. 144 fps, 140 fps. Moving on to another game. This is Real Racing. Let me just open the Game Genie interface. You can see X mode is shown as disabled, so I'll just enable the X mode. The game has started. Okay, so we will be tilting the device in order to steer. You can see here we are getting 144 fps. This is real 144 fps gaming. Again, very stable fps. Yeah, tutorial complete. There was another feature that I wanted to show, the motion control feature. Just tap on motion control here, make sure it has been enabled, and we can place its key over any virtual key of the game. For example, I'll be placing the motion control key over the X key of Damon PS2 Pro emulator. So when I shake my mobile, X key of Damon PS2 emulator will be triggered. With that, Kratos will be jumping. Now let me just show you this in action. So now I just shake the phone and you can see Kratos jumped. Again, we can change its sensitivity as well. Let me just show you that. All you need to do is tap on this setting cog, and you can see here I have set the sensitivity to high. It can be set to low. That's entirely up to you. There is another feature that I wanted to show you. We have the key mapping feature. Using the key mapping feature, we can assign the keys of our gamepad to the virtual keys of the game. For example, I'll just tap on key mapping here. Now the L2 and R2 triggers of Xbox One gamepad does not work with this emulator. So I'll be manually mapping both of these trigger buttons to the trigger buttons of Damon PS2 emulator. Just make sure it has been enabled first. Press the R2 trigger. You can see it has been registered. Let me open the controller interface of Damon PS2 emulator. Here we can see the trigger buttons. Now I'll place the key mapping button over the R2 button. To save our key mapping, just tap on any part of the screen. Now press the L2 trigger of our gamepad. Place it over the L2 button of Damon PS2 emulator. Tap on any part of the screen. We are done with our key mapping. Now let me just show you these trigger buttons in action. So I'll press the L2 trigger of my gamepad. This will enable the God power, you can see here. And when I press the R2 trigger of my gamepad, you can see the R2 button of Damon PS2 emulator is triggered. So good to have this key mapping feature. Then we have Minecraft. This game runs with a variable FPS. Let's see how it runs on ROG Phone 3. These are my video settings. Let's just start the game. Yeah, the game has started. And we are getting 98 fps, 117 fps. So fps is very variable, depends on the scene. A viewer asked me to test it. FPS is ranging from 100 to 130. It mostly stays above 100, getting 142 FPS here. In the end guys, we have Armoury Crate. Here we can individually customize our games or applications. For example, this is the games library section. You can see the apps that I have installed here. For example, we have Critical Ops. To fine tune this game, tap on scenario profiles. Here we can individually choose X modes level 1, level 2, level 3. This is not a system wide setting. So even when the X mode is disabled and you start the game, it will get activated by itself. And when you close the game, X mode will be disabled by itself. You can also download custom profiles for this game by tapping on here. You can see there are no corresponding game profiles as of now. There is a memory cleaner option as well. It basically kills all of the apps in the background. Now there is another hardcore performance mode. Just tap on here and you can see hardcore tuning. Here we can control the temperatures, CPU, GPU. By setting a low temperature threshold, the phone will underclock itself in order to maintain low temperatures. For games that are not very demanding, you can set the temperature control to low. We have this advanced section. Just tap on the setting cog. These are system level parameters. You can only access these parameters after rooting a device, but in ROG UI we have access to all of these parameters. You should only mess with these settings when you know what you are doing. For example, if you know that a game is heavy on multi-core instead of a single core, you can try lowering out the performance of the single core in order to save battery and lower its temperature. You can see GPU settings are also provided. This is the kernel access. It's really good to see all of these settings, or you can just disable it or select same as system setting. Then we have the display section. We can choose the display rate for individual app or game. I have set it to same as system setting, but I'll just disable it. And now this refresh rate setting will be applied to this app or game. We can enable or disable anti-aliasing. Using anti-aliasing, the graphics smoothens out at the cost of some performance. We can tweak the touch settings as well. Sliding sensitivity and precision can be tweaked from here. It can be increased or decreased. Then we have the option for touch sensitivity as well. Block touch edges. Let me show you the settings. I'll just enable it and select to large. You can see this is the block touch area. We can increase or decrease it. Here touch won't be registered. I'll just disable it. Then we have the network section. Restrict background sync. Prevent switching networks. Prevent automatically switching to Wi-Fi network when using mobile data connection to avoid disruption in connection. Under the air trigger section, we can see the air trigger profile that we created. These are the air trigger keys that I assigned to the virtual controls of this game, Critical Ops. If you haven't assigned any air trigger keys to the virtual controls of the game, nothing will be displayed here. Then we have the key mapping section. I did not map any keys of my gamepad to this game, so it's empty. This is the macro section and I did not assign any macro in this game. I have already shown you in a different video how to create macros and use them in a game. I'll give its link in the description. Macros is basically a series of inputs that get executed when you press a certain key. If we had created a macro for this game, it would have been shown here. Coming back to the home screen of Armoury Crate, under the console section, a system-wide setting is applied. I already showed you the console section earlier. We can also change the fan speed of the Aeroactive cooler from here. System-wide air trigger setting can be changed from here as well. System lighting option is also available. Now there is a featured section here. From here we can get to know about the Play Store games that support 144Hz. You can see all of them are shown here. This way you don't have to search on the internet to look for games that support 144Hz. These are the games that support 120Hz. These are the games that support ROG Phone's gamepad. I think it's the Kunai gamepad. TwinView air triggers. So guys, that's it with my coverage of ROG Phone 3. I hope you found it useful. I'll end the video here. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.